Okay, just restarts. Just press the button. Anyway, called this Colt Meathead. I don't know what his real name was, but that's what I called him. And this video was taken quite some time ago in the early spring. So the thing with him is he came and it was one of the, we've done all the groundwork kind of a deal. And I said, oh, that's great. And so he was really quiet and really gentle, but the things that bothered him did bother him were things that didn't really make sense to me. And I can't remember exactly what it was that struck me off. But when I was doing my little groundwork, trying to figure out, what he was before I rode him, I don't use a flag very much, and I happened to pick up a flag, and this horse did what every horse I've ever seen that's been hyper exposed with a flag does. He just glossed over, he assumed the position. He kind of widened his stance, put his head down, and just like almost glossed over in his eyes. And I could do anything with that flag and get zero reaction out of him. And then I could drop that and pick up a different kind of a stimulus, a rope or something like that, touch his legs with a rope, and it would fluster him and scare him. And I went, oh no, not one of these. Because that's, for one, it's really hard to fix, and for two, it's really dangerous. These colts have been overexposed, not necessarily with a flag, but just overexposed, hyperexposed with anything. But it's the flag you see them do it the most with, because it's on RFD TV or something. The reason they're dangerous is because you don't know when they're turned off and when they're not. And so when people hyperexpose those horses, what they do is they just flag them so much, and what they're all saying is, I want to desensitize this horse, and what they're actually doing is teaching that horse to ignore you, and that's dangerous. I don't ever want to desensitize a horse. I want to sensitize a horse. I want him to look where I look, think what I think. I want him to be, everywhere I go, I want him to be watching me. Not because he's scared of me, but because I'm the boss. And he's looking for the answers from me. When they've been hyper exposed with that flag, they just ignore you. And so then when something does scare them, they'll pounce on you because they weren't thinking about the fact that you were there. They'll blow up and buck because they forgot you were there, and then something scares them, and oh gosh, and there's a tiger on my back too. They're just really, really dangerous. And so that's what I'm spending this ride doing. I'm just sort of pulling randomly. There's not any method to my madness here about which direction I go, when I stop, when I back up. I'm just doing a lot of stuff, just trying to get him to focus on me, because he's just been taught to ignore people. And the trouble is that translates to their back too. He'd only ever been groundworked, and that whoever done it had done a pile of groundwork, because it took me a long, long time to get this horse where he cared about me. It's really hard to get that. It translates to being on their back too. They learn to ignore you all the time. And for instance, with this colt, he was real gentle, but you'd go in there to catch him into his stall, and he'd just be standing there quietly, looking right at you. You could be whistling or whatever, and you'd reach and touch him, and it'd just spook him. Well, he'd been taught to just ignore people, because they're the ones with the torture flag that we're gonna stimulate you and stimulate you and stimulate you until you can't take it anymore, and you turn your brain off, and they go, see, he's accepted it, which isn't what happened. And so I'm going, wake up, pay attention to me up here. I'm part of this deal. The acceptance thing, I even just hate that word. I try not to ever use it in terms of horses and horse training. I want them to tolerate things. I don't care if you like this or don't like this, but you don't have to accept that this is your fate in life, but you do have to tolerate what I'm doing. And I'll give you an example. You know, one will be a little funny about its ears, and so some of these flaggers will just flag their ears, flag their ears, flag their ears, flag their ears, until that horse has no reaction to the flag touching their ears, and they say, there, he finally accepted it. Well, I don't buy that. I don't like my ears being touched either. I'm real picky about who cuts my hair, so much so. But I have to tolerate it once in a blue moon to get my hair cut. So that's kind of how I treat these horses that are funny about their ears. I don't care if you don't like me touching your ears, that's fine. I don't like getting my ears touched either. But you have to tolerate this long enough for me to put the headstall on and take it back off. That's all I ask for out of that. When you drive to this acceptance, you don't really know what you actually got. You don't know if you've got acceptance, which I don't think is even a real thing in the horse's brain. You don't know if you got acceptance or if you just got ignoring you. So that's my speech on that, and that's what I did. Just pulled on him a lot in all different directions.